Hello, everyone. Hello, happy Wednesday. My name is Melanie Richmond. I am your executive well-being coach. Thank you so much for joining us. If you're just coming on, wherever you're watching this from, please grant StreamYard permission so that we can view your comments. So if you have anything you want to say to us while you're watching this show, we can interact and make it more impactful for you. So today we are talking about creating a really healthy work environment, which who doesn't want that, right? Who doesn't want to enjoy coming to work and really having a lot of fun and feeling supported? So we have Lennis here, who is a chief wellness engineer, which you might be wondering, what is that, right? What kind of C-level is that? But that is one that I'm excited to have her share her story from going from being an engineer to really impacting people and helping people in the wellness world. So welcome, Lennis, to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Yes, I get that question often. What is a chief wellness engineer?
Yeah, so how would you respond to that?
Well, I typically respond, I needed my left brain to really help professionals in STEM and in the corporate world have practical and sustainable ways to make their well-being a priority. So hence the wellness engineer, right? It's like we're talking about well-being, overall well-being, but really practical, really easy, very straightforward left brain ways to make them habits, right? Plus I love the science behind it. So
I think it's so amazing. And I'm also call myself a black sheep who is an engineer as well and really went down the mindfulness hole and has incorporated that in everything I do in my life. And I think it fits well in our discussion today. So I'm excited to have you. Maybe if you can give our audience, or audience is mostly driven professionals that are working corporate, high profile, high stressful jobs as engineers or as any other profession, and they're looking for guidance and help support in really taking their well-being to the next level so that they can reach their goals and go after their big dreams in life. So why don't you share a little bit about yourself and your story so that we get an understanding as to how you got to be the CWE?
Yes, I love that, and I love that your audience is it's driven professionals, right? I identify myself as a driven professional as well. Only now I use that drive in a different way. But to take you back, I graduated with a master's in chemical engineering. I worked in industry for 16 years, and it was one of those experiences where I I work for one company and I got the foundation. We come out of college and it's like, we really don't know much about what we need to do. We learn on the job, but we have the problem solving skills.
Right.
So I did really well there, but I had gotten to a point where I was like, this doesn't feel like it's the right environment for me. I'm not sure that I want to follow the path of the leaders that I'm seeing. So let me put myself out there. Let me put my resume out there. And actually, a friend had switched companies, and she said, "Hey, they're hiring at this company. Would you like to try and apply for that job?" And I said, "Let's do it." Which was perfect because around that 5 year mark, it was when I was starting to evaluate, do I want to find that managerial path? Do I want to find that very technical driven path? What do I really want, right? It's a fork on the road that I know many professionals find themselves in. So I ended up getting this job, and it was very technical driven, which for a couple of years I love because I love learning and just going through a level of detail, a deeper understanding of what we were doing was extremely helpful. But then I kind of got bored. And it's just one of those things where it's like, well,
It's not for
okay,
everyone, right? There's some
right.
people that they love the technical and good on them, right?
Yes, and I saw my boss, and he was so passionate about,
Yeah.
the problem solving, the really like the technical part, and it was incredible. And I was like, I am definitely missing that gene. So I ended up actually, that was a period in my life where I was evaluating a lot of things. I was hitting 30. The expectations from work and the expectations from outside were starting to really match in and really get me into, okay, I want to do it all, driven, but this isn't working. And I was like, I may need to take just a couple of weeks off, not just vacation. Like, I may need to really get some time for me to evaluate what's going to happen. Well, the universe responds to your request, whether you like them or not, the way that it shows it to you. And I actually got laid off. I was working for a very small company. They have maybe 70 individuals, and they let go 20% of their workforce because in chemical engineering specifically is cyclical. And I know a lot of industries, they're cyclical. So we were in the downturn. There wasn't a lot of projects to really sustain the entire staff. So
the universe was looking out for you then.
Yes, with that, it was just like, here you go. And I had already started my mindfulness journey, thank goodness. A lot of the colleagues that got laid off, they immediately jump on the wagon of, I need to find another job. I had set myself up in a financial place where I didn't have to, thankfully, get a job immediately. So I said, I'm just going to do a little bit of soul searching in this space. If this happened, is for a reason. I'm saying it lightly now, but trust me, the crying in the shower, the reflecting on the rejection, the fears that come up of, okay, I'm taking time off, but what if I never get another job? And, and I run out of sick, all these things.
Yeah.
Right? It's, I can tell you calmly now, but it wasn't a calm transition. I had many ups and downs, but that experience allowed me to explore other things. And then the same company called me, put me in a different position that I thought it was going to be more people facing, which I was really into at that point. And it ended up, after 6 months, I didn't really talk to many clients, which was what I wanted to do. So I switched to another company, made it to be a manager, responsible for North and South America, right? And it's like, okay, I made it. I am successful in my career. And there was still a void. So it's like, what do we do with that?
I thought I was chasing the right goal, but where was I heading, right?
Yeah, like you said, true north, right? It's like, what is my true north? What is really my path? And right after, I got that job, started traveling, started enjoying it. Then I became a caregiver. My dad was sick. He was literally very high risk of passing. So I brought him to the US. He was living in Venezuela at the time. Became a caregiver. My priorities kind of changed. At the same time, I said, I really have to take care of myself right now to be supportive of him. And which was something that I hadn't done years prior when he was also sick. And
it was the opposite. You were trying to help him versus help yourself first.
Yeah, it was all about helping him, helping the family, making sure everyone was okay. Me on the bottom of that priority list, very depleted, burnt out, health issues afterwards, right? The consequences, everything accumulates. And now this time I was like, nope, I'm not going to do that again. It was awful. And I don't want to go through that experience. I really want to support him. And with that, it kind of became a snowball of events of COVID happening, getting certified as a meditation teacher, to what I'm doing now as a chief wellness engineer.
That's amazing. And who do you typically help, Lennis? Like, who comes to you?
I tend to attract a lot of women. Right. And especially because they're caregiving in some way, either for their elder parents or for children. And it's that conversation of, I'm definitely at the bottom of my priority list. How do I get myself out of this? How do I get myself um, um, higher, because I do want to succeed at work, but it feels like it's not
Yeah.
possible for me to handle everything.
Yeah, and I think it's something that's common in industry, like working as an engineer or somebody in STEM, being one of the only females in the room, at the table. You often feel like there's a lot more on your shoulder to gain that respect, in order to get recognized, in order to get that promotion and that salary, or move up to that managerial role. So it's been shown in studies that women do feel more burnt out,
Mm-hmm.
and women do feel the need to, take it even further, which already in corporate industries can be very demanding,
Yeah.
requires sometimes some sacrifices for some people that they do in order to climb the corporate ladder, which I disagree with. I think it's really important to look at life, as a whole, a wheel of life, and there's so many different components to it, and work is a part of it. And really, it's life and then work. And like for you to step back from that manager position to reprioritize that caregiving for your father, that was a huge, shift for yourself, and to recognize, okay, what is it that I need for myself in order to feel whole in all these different well-being realms in life, and take that forth. So what would you recommend for anyone that's struggling at work with, role models that are in shoes that they would like to be in, but have sacrificed their family or their health, or anything that they're really passionate about in order to get to those positions?
Yeah, it is tough when you're looking around and you don't really find models of balance or well-being.
Mm-hmm.
It's just culturally not there. I remember, perfect example, one of my in my early career, one of my bosses, his wife had their first son, and he was in the office that afternoon, and it's like,
Wow.
what are you doing here? And he's like, well, they're sleeping right now, so I just needed to grab some things so I can keep working, right? And I started asking myself, is this
Wow.
what it takes? Right? That, and we see it in the movies and we see it on shows, and it's like this constant working and productivity and things. So what I can tell you is, finding, number one is like really check your support system. For me, one of the things that I had to do when I became a caregiver was ask for extra help. In my case, it wasn't necessarily on the job front, although I'll talk about that in a little bit, but what I did in terms of work and expectations, but it was at home. I
Mm-hmm.
said, I need someone to help me with the cleanup at least once a month. I cannot do it all if I really need to have some space to prioritize myself. At work, I immediately communicated with the team and I said, listen, my situation has changed. This is where I'm at right now. I'm trying to figure it out. Maybe some trips I won't be able to go as often as is expected just because of this time. It doesn't mean that it's forever. I just need to, take some time to prioritize being home for doctor's appointment, for whatever I needed. And
Mm-hmm.
thankfully they were understanding with that, but I had to communicate it. That's the other thing, right? A lot of times we're afraid to speak up on what we need.
Exactly. Yeah. And I love that you brought that up, the flexibility piece, because I think in order for industry to really change, and COVID was a blessing for that, working remotely and being accepting of you can still be productive, and that has made such a big impact, especially for females and caregivers that do have commitments at home, that typically they're the ones primarily responsible for it, have had the opportunity to still be able to perform at work, just not physically be present from 8 to 5 in an office in order to achieve those results. And that's the biggest thing I find in any professional industry. It's not a job that you check in, check out, and you're you're moving manufacturer pieces around, whereas like your time is the time that you're there. Really, in a professional setting, it's what do you produce?
Yeah.
What are the results you're achieving? And every individual is so different as to what makes them achieve those results in what setting, what environment.
Yeah.
And having the flexibility to work in an environment that works for you is so powerful and has been such a blessing. So maybe if you could talk a little bit about like what is a thriving and healthy work environment.
I think to have a thriving and work environment, the first things that need to happen is to have an open line of communication.
Mm-hmm.
If you do not have that open line of communication, it's really difficult to thrive and to work in a healthy way, right? Because there comes the assumptions. That here comes the maybe limiting beliefs, and this is where a lot of people suffer from imposter syndrome, because sometimes the expectations are not clearly defined. You're not meeting with your supervisors or your managers on a regular basis, or if you're a manager, you may not be meeting with your team members on a regular basis and not checking in with them. So I think foundation is communication, being able to communicate. When I go to communication, I also want to emphasize that different people communicate differently.
Absolutely.
And it is so important to just simply ask that question. What do you prefer? Do you feel comfortable with a phone call? Do you prefer to do a Zoom? Do you rather just do some emails? Do you want to check through text messages? Right? Because for some people, I remember talking to one engineer, and she said, I hate that I have to turn on my camera all the time. I am working anyways, but they just keep criticizing me because I don't turn on my camera. And in a way, I feel that I just need that boundary sometimes at home when I'm working from home to not have my camera on. So it's her way of like communicating and saying, are the results there? Can you tell your supervisor or your team members, hey guys, I really need to have my camera off right now. My results are here. This is what I'm doing, and back it up with data. Like, of course, in the professional setting, all they're thinking about is the bottom line, getting to the deadlines, getting the projects done. So back it up with data and communicate.
Yeah, I love that you brought up communication as the first component, because like you said, communication is foundational. Everybody communicates differently, but it's also what leads to trust.
Mm-hmm.
And when someone communicates expectations and clear, outlines as to what they're looking for, and somebody might be able to listen to that and perform or deliver slightly different. But once they keep doing it repetitively and consistently, and they are achieving the results that that manager's after or beyond, that really builds trust as to, okay, this person can be working without their camera on the meetings or whatnot, and they're still achieving it, because that camera on does not mean if you're a good employee or not, right? It just means that comfort level for that employee as to how they like to communicate. And similarly in person, right? Some people have really big commutes, and that additional 2 hours commute a day might really affect their self-care time. And then they might not be showing up as well in the office because they haven't had a chance to go for a run today, or haven't had a chance to be with their kid that evening for a soccer game, or whatever that case is. But it's just, it goes beyond so much more than that physical aspect of being in the office.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I think that's a blessing, a shift that we were forced into, but we really had to expand our narrow vision of what a professional in a corporate environment 9 to 5 looks like, of going into the office and getting out, right? So now it's like, different modalities of working and performing.
Yeah, and I love that you use the word thriving as well, because if you look at a garden or plants, right, in order for your plants to thrive, you have to let the plants do their thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
You just need to set the conditions, the soil, the nutrients for them to grow. And that's what organizations need to be doing in order for their employees to keep growing and thriving and taking it to new levels, is by setting the conditions, right? Not micromanaging. Hey, you need to grow an inch today to keep up with schedule.
You're not giving me 5 tomatoes in 5 days. Come on, plant. What are you doing?
Exactly. Amazing. So we're coming up towards the end of our time here. So I wanted to ask, I love to give our audience a piece of advice that you feel called to. Is there anything that comes to mind that you wanted to share with our audience?
I would say get comfortable with boundaries. Like setting boundaries, and it goes back to communication, right? Setting boundaries are key for you to create this healthy environment and thriving environment for yourself, and to be a role model for others as well. That is something that I wish I had in my trajectory. More people showing me boundaries are good for you. You can communicate boundaries in a way that other people will respect it, understand it, and yeah, just think about what boundaries do you need so you can really thrive. So then you can communicate them, right? You first need to have a clear understanding of what are some boundaries that you need to set for yourself. So then you can communicate them and have others understand where you're coming from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's one of our core pillars in my group coaching program. It's all about boundaries, because I think in order to work, or in order to live really a thriving life and really be at your full potential, having a clear understanding of what are my musts, my needs, and my wants, and being able to set boundaries so that you can prioritize those things that are meaningful and super important for you in life by setting those boundaries and guidelines. And you have to respect yourself, because it's easy to say, this is what I want, but are you actually leaving work at 4:00 so that you can go exercise or whatever that is, right? So
yes. I am a recovering people pleaser. That's why I call myself, because I will find myself in those situations. It's like, yes, I'm training for a marathon, but then, a deadline came up, and it's like, I have these people with these expectations from me. So it's a process.
Absolutely. Well, Lennis, it was so great to have you on the show today. And we are so excited to learn more from you and keep collaborating moving forward at True North. What is the best way for someone to reach out to you, ask you a question, or get to know more of your content?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Melanie, for having me here. If you would love to learn a little bit more about wellness engineering and the work that I do, you can contact me on LinkedIn. It will be my first and last name, Lennis Perez. I'm very active on LinkedIn. And I also have a YouTube channel where you can get some great content, especially if you are in the STEM industry. You can go to Lennis Perez TV, as in television. And you'll find me there. I respond to comments. I'm active. So yeah, feel free to reach out. I'm a real person, is what I tell people. You can talk to me.
Yeah, that's the best thing about this virtual world now, is you can connect with so many different people across the world and have meaningful conversation, like human conversation. So that's amazing. Well, thank you all for those who are watching live. If you're watching the replay, just let us know in the show notes that you are watching the replay. And I will be taking a bit of a pause here, because I'm about to bring another child into this world, which is very exciting. Yes. So I'll be popping on when I can and doing some short videos. But for now, if you do need to reach me, just send me a message on either social platforms or an email. All right, everybody, all the best. Take care and create those healthy and thriving boundaries for you so that you can go to that next growth. Take care.